Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, hi, this is Attican and welcome to another Railway Empire video. In this one, we are going to go back to the Crossing the Andes DLC, and we're going to play that first scenario, Outside Capital. And it's the one, it's considered medium difficulty. It's really quite easy. But we definitely want to get a perfect score on it. So I want to show you the roadmap for getting a roadmap. There's more than one way to do these things, but a roadmap for getting a perfect score. I also want to show you, because they really built this scenario to teach us how to play the lady. Remember, this came out right after they made the changes to the characters. The lady's the only one we are allowed to choose. So we're going to use the lady, who gets more income from passengers and mail. She gets double bonus for express trains, slow on repairs, we'll definitely deal with that, and less income on freight. So we're definitely going passenger and mail here and really going to build ourselves out a terrific economy here rapidly with the lady. And so I want to take a moment here and show you what goes on in this scenario, or at least how it starts. I can't show you all of it because this is one of those where you do a certain set and then an event occurs and some more tasks pop out. But let's just look at these first tasks. Connect 7 cities, and we have to do it within this year, and to get a perfect score we have to be done by June of 1900. Transport a bunch of passengers in a year. That is not a problem with what we're going to do. Company value of $2 million is also not a problem because, again, the lady is just so strong that you can just build up revenue so fast. And a quarterly revenue from passengers, again, all these are aimed at passenger revenue. That's what the lady does. So they're really teaching us, the whole thing with the lady: expand quickly, get a lot of passenger and mail lines running, and make a lot of money. So let's go back and restart this, and we'll go ahead and play as the lady. And as I said, I wanted to show you kind of a roadmap for how to get a perfect score. And also, there's a couple of great comments that have come through on the channel from a couple of our little band of Railway Empire enthusiasts, and I want to share a couple of those with you that are very interesting ideas. So we've restarted it as the lady, and there's the same task that we just went over. And what we're going to do here is use rapid expansion strategy, but this is the first comment from our community. This is another Jan Jansen comment. In fact, I kind of call this the Jan Jansen land grab. So what we're going to do here is rapidly expand our network. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just searching the map and reminding myself where the cities are. There's that little Viedma down there that I forgot first time I tried this scenario way back when the DLC first came out. But I'm scouting around. We only have 8 cities that we can connect, so we're going to grab 7 of them as quickly as we can. And the close ones together are there: Buenos Aires and Rosario and whatever that third city is up through there. So we're going to use this kind of Jan Jansen land grab, and it's a variation on the rapid expansion strategy. What we're going to do is build a single line, and I want you to notice a couple of things about this build. One, it's not double tracked. It's hard for me to do this, but it's not double tracked. 2, it's passenger and mail only. Now that is not necessarily part of the Jan Jansen technique, but because we're playing the lady and because of our goals, it's every line almost. I goof up once, but most of the lines will be passenger and mail only. And we're going to run as short a line as we can, as straight a line as we can between these 2 cities, because that's how we get the fastest possible times and the most money. And again, passenger and mail line, but notice we're not putting in any switches, we're not putting in any supply towers. More on that in a minute. And no maintenance, just quick connections. We've got 3 cities connected already, and we're on January 7th. So now we're going to go to the south here to Bahia Blanca and connect that up to Buenos Aires. And let's just fast forward, because we're just going to go through and get Buenos Aires, then Viedma, then we'll go up north and get a couple of cities, and let's just fast forward until we get that done. All right, so we hooked in Salta up here to the north, and that gives us our seventh city. So we've got one down. Now we need to transport a bunch of passengers, and none of our trains have actually made an entire trip yet to even move any passengers. You saw our count was 0, but of course it's only January 22nd of our first year, so we've already finished off our first task. And here I thought about running double track, and the reason I'm doing it from here, well, first of all, my idea is I like double track. I want more than one train running. I'm certainly not going to run my whole system single track, one train. No way. But I love the start of the single track. It was perfect for this scenario where we had to get that rapid task. And you can actually make pretty good money with these lines because you're going to get pretty full trains running. And you could, of course, just not even put trains on it, just connect them all up. I've done that before, connect them all up and then delete them. And, just kind of start over and once you got that task out of the way. But this way, you've got these trains running, they're making profit, and then you can expand that infrastructure as you go along. So I like that better. Now, what I decided to do is go back here and double track the shorter lines first. Just makes more sense. They're going to be cheaper. We can raise the money much faster to double track these shorter lines. And we got to haul a lot of passengers now fairly quickly. So we're going to double track the shorter lines, run more trains, get more passengers going, and really move it on. You can see there I've got Chicha moving between Tucumán and Cordoba. And that was the one I goofed up. I forgot to make that passenger mail only, and it happens to be a beer meat line. So it's actually running some freight right now. But really meant to have passenger mail only because that's the lady's thing. Passengers, that's how she makes her money. And this particular bill was interesting. This track, I don't know if this has ever happened to you before. It's like the second piece of track was too close to the first one. And I couldn't select the two tracks. It's like they build over top of each other. So I had to go back and redo it. I think I might have even had to redo it a couple of times to get it to work. Had to make sure I clicked it, anchored it twice, once toward each end of it. See there, the track is too close. It won't allow me to put down any signals. So I had to go back a third time and go out here and make sure that it was, off, clicked over there, locked into the track over here, and then back. And then finally this third time, it lets me actually use both tracks. So that took a while. So what we're going to do here now is start doubling up tracks and running trains more like you would kind of typically see one of my setups, except that they're all going to be passenger freight lines with that one exception, which is just so weird for me. And we've also gotten some research. We've gotten up to the the Kitzenmeyer, the second train. I apologize, I don't know what it is. The Kitzenmeyer, there it is. So we're now running that train. Important with the lady that you run the fastest train available per the research. Now, notice what I did right there. I just took all those Kitzenmeyers we were already running and replaced them. So what's going on here? Now, this is the idea that comes to us from Pechik. That's how I'm going to say it. It's PE6YC. So I think that's supposed to be Pechik. So Pechik says, don't ever build maintenance. You've seen me do that many times, not build maintenance. And this is a good one, that don't build supply towers. And his reasoning is this. Those two items cost you money, which you don't need to be spending early in the game. That's number one. Number two, if you're going to use supply towers, your trains stop and get supplies instead of running as quickly as they could have. And if you go into maintenance, they all slow down and get maintenance. And what you do is just periodically replace all your trains with the same train, and it costs you a fraction of the money that it would cost you to actually service the trains you're already running properly. So this is really, to me, a flaw in the game mechanics. It's something we're taking advantage of. It's you might think of it as an exploit, but what's happening here is it's cheaper and more economical and build your economy faster if you don't have maintenance and you don't have supply towers. That's that's one of those you almost have to say, well, I'm going to use supply towers anyway because it's more realistic. You almost have to make that rule for yourself because it really doesn't make any sense to use them. And you'll see what I mean as we go along here. Now, it gets to be a pain, but just the same, you can replace all your trains. Like if you're running Kitson-Myers, the only thing that you're paying for is the depreciation if you replace all those Kitson-Myers with more Kitson-Myers. So the replacement, see, I can't afford a train here, but I could actually go out and replace all my trains, 8 or 9 trains easily right now with 20 grand, easily. That's just a weird thing. So there we go. It's April of 1900. We've already carried 1,000 passengers because we've got all those lines set up running passengers. And we're starting to get more and more as we double up our track and add trains so that we're picking up more of the passengers and they're not leaving us and getting tired of waiting. So see here, look at this. 7 trains, $2,500 or whatever that was. Nothing. And that's much cheaper than putting in towers. It's much cheaper than putting in maintenance. And now we've got brand new trains running everywhere. So that's Petchik's idea, and we're going to follow that for a long time in this playthrough. And we already followed Jan Jansen's land grab idea to get ourselves started. So this is just a matter of going through and doubling up lines so that there's more and more revenue. So let's move ahead a bit. So here we've finished our first 4 tasks. We've got that passenger revenue. We've got a $2 million company. Now we've got to expand to get Buenos Aires and Santiago connected. Santiago is way over across the mountains from us. And we've got to expand out to 10 cities. So what we're going to do here, and notice our numbers were minus 101,000. At this point forward, they're going to... our sponsor here is going to start siphoning money off of our account. So they're going to make us lose some money as we go along. And no big deal because we're going to have such a strong economy, but they're going to take out significant amounts of money on us in a regular interval. But again, no big deal. And there's another replacement. What I'm doing is whenever I see trains are starting to run low on supplies or we see any kind of a sign of a breakdown, just replacing all the trains. And it costs just a tiny amount of money. And also we got that first research, which is the lower depreciation. So depreciation costs are down 40%, so it's costing even less. And it's just I don't know if I'd want to play like this all the time because it just seems like it's just making one. It just seems like a cheat. But you gotta say, if you're looking at game mechanics, how does the game work? What's the best way to play the game? I think we're seeing it. Don't build towers. Don't build maintenance. Just replace the trains. And that's something I learned. All this time I haven't been doing maintenance. I should have been replacing the trains with the same train more often. So lesson learned for me. Now, while all this flies by, all we're doing now is expanding. We're moving out and picking up 3 more cities. We don't have quite enough money. It's going to cost, we're kind of measuring it out, it's going to cost over $1 million to make that first line from Buenos Aires over to Santiago. So what we're going to do here is we do have enough money to keep expanding. So we're just going to keep expanding. We've got to get those 10 cities hooked up. So we're going to go out and pick up a couple or 3 more cities. That'll get that task out of the way. And there's another task that says you have to have $1 million in cash. Well, we need $1 million to get through that, to blast that tunnel and build that first line. So those two are going to go hand in hand. We're going to expand out first and have an even bigger economic engine. And you'll see we're starting to do double track now. So now we're getting really profitable lines with double track and lots of trains running and just money just rolling in. And what we're going to do now is just accumulate you can see there until we have that 100,000 cash and we can connect Santiago. Then we get these new things where we have to get rid of our competitors, have 20 express trains at the same time, have 5 cities with an attraction, and you know what, I missed what that first one was, but anyway, that attraction one says we're going to have to do a little bit of city building because as John Weens pointed out to me the first time I played this, I had misread it before. You don't need 5 cities with attractions. You really need 5 stations in cities, so that could be as few as 3 cities if you had 2 stations, and at least 1 station in a third city, with those 3 cities having attractions. That's all you need. So we need to grow 3 cities to hit that goal. And now we're up to the Berkshires, so we're running Berkshires on all of our lines. And we're still continuing to do, we don't have any supply towers yet. We don't have any maintenance sheds anywhere. We're just replacing all of our trains whenever we start to see trains running out of supplies or trains needing maintenance. In fact, we almost never see the maintenance because once you get the supplies, if you replace them all, they're never going to break down because, well, except for the occasional random, you're not going to get the breakdowns because you're running new trains practically all the time. So anyway, we will keep on going with that and build up. Now we're getting ready to have our $1 million, and we'll go ahead and hook up Santiago. And I'm going to just fast forward through this because, again, it's just blasting through that mountain. We do run a big tunnel because I want the straightest line I can get. In fact, actually, I'm a little behind here. I've already blasted through, and now we're running the track coming back. And we want the straightest line we could get, straightest, flattest line we could get, because we're wanting an express line here to make a lot of money. So now we'll have a nice passenger mail line running from Santiago to Buenos Aires. All right, so here now I can see that first additional task. You see we finished all the others, but now we got those 4 new ones. The 3 I mentioned, plus we have to get Lima and Santa Cruz into our network, as well as Concepcion. Now, Concepcion's down there south of Santiago, but now we've blasted through the mountains, so we've got an opportunity to do that. And Santa Cruz is up to the north, inland, and then Lima, of course, is way up the coast on the Pacific coast. So we're now going to you know, this is just, of course, setting up that passenger mail line between Santiago and Buenos Aires, and I ran them all with the mail car and the dining car to get the bonuses, because your passenger mail lines tend to be less than full, so you ought to at least get the bonuses on them. And so here we go with our passenger to mail lines there, and then we'll just expand out and get these others connected. And we do a little something with our competitors here coming up. So now we're going to go ahead and finish off that line to Santiago. Now you can see we're running a line down, passenger mail line down to Concepcion, which is down there south of Santiago. And now we're going to go up to the north, up in the middle of the country, or the map, and pick up Santa Cruz, which is kind of right there in the heartland. And then we're going to run Santa Cruz on up to Cusco. And here we see that we've run into Roger, because Roger has been building Cusco and Lima and that area up there in Peru, basically. So we're going to connect Santa Cruz to Cusco, and then I look at it and think, well, the easiest way to get to Lima would be to just buy Roger. So, you know, we've got a really strong economy now, so it's time to buy Roger. We need to do it anyway, and it's always fun to buy out the competitors. So we're just going to make sure this line goes around as many mountains as possible, not through them. And we're going to accept a pretty decent little bridge right there, because, again, we want this to be an express line. And so we want the straightest, most level path we can get within reason. And we're going to run a line between Santa Cruz and Cusco, and we should pick up good traffic from it because now we're hooking into the cities that Roger has been developing. Now we still have to connect Lima. We've got Santa Cruz and Concepcion, and the easiest way, as I said, to hook into Lima, rather than building all those difficult that track through all those mountains and stuff, is to buy Roger. So that's what we're going to do next. We are going to look at our capital is racking up in a hurry. We're making great money. So we're just going to keep running these passenger and mail lines, and we're going to go out and buy our buddy Roger, and that will give us our connection to Lima. All right, so there goes Roger. That was pretty easy. We buy out Roger, and I did something a little different this time. I decided to just keep everything and let him run and see if he couldn't make us some money. And if I had it to do over again, I would say goodbye to Roger, definitely. And by say goodbye, I mean I would liquidate everything, take the cash, and move on from there. But, oh well. So now we need to get into some city building because we've got to have at least 3 cities of 60,000 so we can put in attractions. So what we're going to do here is set up a nice little 2-city cluster between Buenos Aires and Rosario, and we're going to fill up, we actually end up with 5 resources we put in here: logs and fish and corn and sugar and something else. Cocoa. Originally I'd set it up as coffee because that's the next one on the list, but the cocoa was closer, so we'll grab cocoa. And what we're going to do here is, I mean, this is just a classic 2-city cluster. We've got plenty of videos to go out and watch how you build a 2-city cluster. But we are going to run half the goods into one of the warehouses. I should say this: 3 of the goods into one of the warehouses, 2 of the goods into the one up there at Rosario, and then we'll run a shuttle back and forth between them to move the goods so that both warehouses get all 5 goods. And then we'll be ready to grow those 2 cities. So again, other videos you can watch on how to build 2-city clusters, including the warehouse series. And so let's just skip ahead. I will say this: I did for a while there. I just kind of got into buying these raw material resources like the fishing village or the corn or the sugar or whatever. It was totally unnecessary, but it was just something to do. So I'm money rich right now. I also wanted to build up my capital, the company value, so that our next bond could be bigger in anticipation of buying out Don Lorenzo at some point. So the other aspect of a 2-city cluster, of course, is we have to be able to have the manufactured goods in the 2 cities move back and forth. And we only have a passenger and mail line running between Rosario and Buenos Aires. So we could put in another line, but we would have to, change our track a little bit and run a direct line. That would be easy enough. But what I decided to do was take advantage of our smaller warehouse, the one they just call a warehouse now, and put in a warehouse, although I think it's a warehouse with signaling controls. And what we're going to do is allow the meat to come into the system, or the cattle, because we're not actually feeding cattle anywhere. We have the corn. Remember, on this map, you make your, I call it beer, but the chicha is made from corn. So we've got the corn coming into our system, but we don't have any cattle. And we've got meat up there in Rosario that needs to be fed. So what we're going to do here is set up another little warehouse to warehouse deal, only this one is going to do 3 goods. It's going to do beer, meat, and cattle. And that's going to allow us to feed the cattle up to Rosario and pass our beer and meat back and forth between these 2 warehouses. So we'll just set up a simple line between these 2. These are both, as I said, warehouses with signaling control. Because we got so much money now, we can do that kind of thing. We don't have to build our own switches or control our platforms. We can take advantage of the functionality. So we're going to say, give us cattle, give us beer, give us meat. And it takes me a minute to remember or to figure out I need to get cattle into the system, because I'm just thinking about this. And see all those warnings? So all we do is replace 35 grand, the cost of 1 supply tower, and they're all replaced. So life is good. So it does get to be a pain, though. So where was I? So we're building this beer meat interchange warehouse, set up a couple of warehouses, which will keep the growth going in these 2. And here's an example of how I'm going to rename, but I'm going to rename them so I can keep them straight and know what you can and cannot take out of the warehouse. And since this one's a real simple one, this would be a good one to show you an example. So one warehouse is chicha, and the other one is the meat. So when you're in the meat one, you don't want to pick up the chicha, and when you're in the chicha one, you don't want to pick up the meat. So that way we don't just move meat back and forth or chicha back and forth. We take the appropriate good to each of the warehouses, and our beer and meat are passed back and forth between our 2 cities, and our 2 cities can keep growing. You notice they're growing anyway, even before we did this. So having all those raw materials come in there was enough to get them going. And I thought I needed another city to grow, and thought, well, why don't we just see if we can't just run a 3-city cluster and have some of those goods that are coming into that warehouse at Rosario also come over to the warehouse, a new warehouse that we'll put up over here in whatever that city is over there. And so what we'll do is set up lines that take from the other 2 warehouses. So it'll go over to the warehouse in Buenos Aires and take the items that are delivered directly in there, like the fish. And it will go and run a line directly from there to the warehouse, this new warehouse we've just put in. And in this new one, we will not allow anything to be taken out. So it will be strictly for taking from the other 2 warehouses. Cordoba, that's it. So the Cordoba warehouse is just a taker. We're going to set up lines to take from the other 2 warehouses. So go to our fish sugar warehouse and take fish and sugar, but do not take any of the other items because they're being brought there from somewhere else. And when you get there, make sure that your max load is 0. In other words, don't leave empty every time. And we'll run trains from that warehouse we just set up, that warehouse to the Cordoba, and then we'll do the same thing with this logs and corn and cocoa warehouse. So let's just move ahead, because this is just basic city building, which we've covered many times. So that one in Cordoba is pretty small and it's going to take a while to grow. So what we're going to do here is set up a two-city cluster between Santiago, which is already a pretty decent size, and Concepcion, because there's a lot of good resources down here on this coast, and it's a very resource-rich area. So we will set up the same kind of a deal. We'll run some of the raw materials into Santiago, some of them into Concepcion warehouse, and then shuttle them back and forth between the two, and that will allow those two cities to grow. And sure enough, Santiago will grow very nicely for us. Our first two-city cluster, the Buenos Aires and Rosario, will grow, and that'll give us the three cities we need, and then we can put in attractions. So we have our attractions set. Getting the 20 express trains is a no-brainer for us, because what will happen is once we buy Don Lorenzo and he's out of the way, we know that we've got the fastest, biggest, baddest train out there, and we've got a ton of places where express lines can be set up, and we've set up all these passenger mail lines, and we've built the track so that it's nice, direct, straight lines, relatively flat, so we're not going to have any issues with getting express lines. So why don't we just move ahead to the end and see how we did. Hopefully you followed all this. You don't have to do it like this. Just do it any way you want to. I just wanted to give you the basic formula of expand a bunch. Use that Jan Jansen land grab. Expand a bunch. If you want to play this way, you can skip the maintenance and skip the supply towers and just replace your trains frequently for very low cost. If you notice, I have supply towers here. I eventually got tired of all the yellow cones, and once my economy was really strong, I went back through and put in supply towers on all the routes, so that all I had to do really then is watch for maintenance, and if the maintenance got really bad, then I would change everything. So there you can see we're in the middle of setting that up, and Santiago's already grown for us. So now we just we need to get Buenos Aires to grow, and we need to get Rosario to grow, and they're set up to grow. So let's just move ahead to the end now and see how we did. All right, there we get our message, our nice little music saying we've succeeded. And let's see how we did. We got our president rating. We got 11 out of 11 tasks, 20 out of 20 timing, perfect score, 3 years and 11 months. Could have been a little faster, probably if we'd done our city growth just a little bit earlier. But otherwise, I was very happy with it. And I thought it was just a terrific way to figure out how to play the lady. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.